Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Artificial Empathy vlog. Today, with Professor Richard Mendelson, we will explore some topics about artificial emotional intelligence and artificial empathy. If you want to skip some questions, you can jump directly to your favorite topic, clicking on the related item in the menu you can find in the video description area. These are the topics we are going to discuss today. Relationship between artificial emotional intelligence and industrial organization of psychologists. What should be the role of psychologists in developing an ethical artificial emotional intelligence? Do you think the ability to show empathy will be for a long time a prerogative of a human being? Which are the blocks we need to create a real artificial empathy? If you wish to interact with our guests, you can follow the link to our social network, clicking both of the link in the channel description area or in the video description. And feel free to comment here, submitting your questions. First of all, thank you a lot for joining me in this interview about artificial emotional intelligence. The goal today is try to cover some topics, especially to understand which could be the connection between emotional intelligence and artificial intelligence to create this new kind of artificial emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
We have a very, let's say, short time of scheduling, about 30 minutes. So if you agree, I would like to start with your question.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, the first question is about the connection between artificial emotional intelligence and industrial organizational psychology. I would like to start with the current state of technology and then your image or impressions on the incoming future.
Okay. Well, at present, there are some organizations who are using what they claim is artificial intelligence in different aspects of the talent cycle. So essentially, we have some groups that are using it for employee appraisals. Other groups are using it for employee selection and things like that. Now, industrial and organizational psychology, for people who may not be aware, essentially what we do is we work with the human capital of organizations to select the right people, measure performance, help to improve the performance and improve overall productivity or revenue generation of organizations. We also help organizations make, more educated personnel decisions. So the use of artificial intelligence can be quite beneficial. I think the challenge is that at present, when people talk about artificial intelligence, more often than not, they're talking about a algorithmic computer program that kind of follows one direction to the next, or something in terms of like a decision tree, where if you answer yes here, it drops you into another spot where there's 2 or 3 follow-up type questions. At present, to my knowledge, there is no real artificial emotional intelligence that has been really worked on or is being used in the IO psychology field. There are some organizations that have created what they call an artificial empathy engine. Some groups that have worked to help a computer or help an artificial intelligence recognize or identify emotional states of individuals. But at least in my opinion, I don't believe that you can have a true artificial emotional intelligence until you have the ability to generate an artificial intelligence form that can go off algorithm or off script. Because that's really what makes us human. And that's what emotional intelligence really derives from, is our human experience. So I don't think that we're quite at that point yet. But we certainly have technology that's made leaps and bounds forward. I believe that the artificial intelligence will be, in my opinion, easier to work through than generating true artificial emotional intelligence.
And I agree with you. I mean, we are very far for having any kind of empathy. There's a lot of great studies, a lot of theoretical approach, like, for example, for robots. And there's a question for you later about, let's say, the new wave of facial recognition approaches. But let's move to the next question.
Okay.
Due to the nature of the AI and in general, the deep learning that could briefly described as a black box, able to receive tons of data and elaborate complex results, which should be the role of psychologists in developing an ethical artificial emotional intelligence.
Okay, well, I admit that I'm biased here because I am an industrial and organizational psychologist. So at my core, I'm still a helper of people. But my belief is that we really need to be the ones to set the trend in terms of the ethical use of this technology. There's really no other field in which the focus is on the human beings. Whether you're a coder, programmer, business owner, your role and your responsibility is to use your technology and your products to generate revenue. Oftentimes, we don't think about what the cost of that might be. Use of something like artificial intelligence, if there is a true artificial intelligence out there at present, the use of that technology could be hugely beneficial for humankind, but it can also be completely catastrophic. Of course, I'm not thinking that it'll end up like the opening scene in Terminator, but I mean, we all know what Skynet did, so that's not really a positive thing to look forward to. But in reality, I think that technology is ever present in our lives. Everything that we do, we are essentially like right now the first generation of cyborgs. I mean, we're plugged into our cell phones, our watches. We're talking through computers right now. And we spend most of our day in that manner. So, having an artificial intelligence out there that is not really benevolent can be disconcerting. And when you look at the past things that have been done, Google released their artificial intelligence bot through social media, and I think what was it? Within 24 hours, they determined that it had become racist, which is really a frightening thing. When you have a true artificial intelligence and you just unleash it, it's going to grow, it's going to learn, it's going to develop the same way a person would. And we all know when we look around that unfortunately not all people end up good. So, there needs to be some sort of checks and balances on it. And it's frightening to think that there really aren't. Right now, we have the capacity to do a lot of things. There aren't too many people who are focused on whether or not we should be doing them. There's just not enough information yet to see what the full outcome can be. Right now, it's kind of like we're throwing a gigantic stone into a pond and we're upsetting the surface, but we're all staring at where the stone landed. Nobody's looking at what happens on the shore when all the ripples start to roll in as waves. And that's problematic for me. I think this could have a vastly profoundly negative or positive impact on human beings. We just don't know. So I think as psychologists, we should be the ones who really are the trendsetters and the ethical police of this type of a technology, if you will, because that's really related to what we do as a profession. Is we look at how things impact a human being, and no other field does that the way that we do.
Yeah, the example you did about a Twitter chatbot is perfect, especially if we think about, say, releasing artificial intelligence tools for automatic weapons. So that will be very problematic in the future if we don't have any kind of control or any kind of, let's say, committee that supervise this technology and how this technology will be used. But let's move to another very hot topic, because now in the media there's a lot of talking about AI replacing human jobs. We supposed AI to replace only repetitive jobs or tasks, or even improve processes and make decisions. But recently, AI showed the ability to examine human feelings, for example, as you say before, like facial expression recognition or human behavior. and even, let's say, worse, to predict them. There's a lot of companies that now are working on crime prediction, for example. It's a very, let's say, it's a new market, but it's crowd spaces now. Do you think artificial emotional intelligence will increase it? Or on the contrary, the ability to show and feel empathy will be for a long time a prerogative of a human being?
Well, I think that, okay, so there's a couple of aspects of that question. First of all, I think that for a long time, I don't think that the programmers are going to get this right in terms of generating true artificial emotional intelligence. And I'll tell you why. Um, when you look at how emotional intelligence develops and manifests in human beings, things change over time through life experience, through experiencing joy, experiencing pain or suffering, experiencing everything in between, and we grow from those experiences. So if one were to think about maybe when you were in, say, middle school or something, and you have your first, like boyfriend or girlfriend or crush, and you find out that they don't like you, it's like this heartbreaking thing, and for days you're just depressed, you're down in the dumps, and then by the time you get to high school or college, you find out somebody doesn't like you. It's like, all right, no big deal, or you go through a breakup and maybe it takes less time to recover. So as we have these experiences, we learn how to process them, how to experience them, really, how we allow ourselves to experience them, and we learn to respond accordingly. But that doesn't happen when you create something that is essentially the way artificial intelligence is, where it essentially pops out of the digital womb as an adult. It may have all of the intellect that an adult might have, but it's had none of the life experiences. And as a result, although it might be intellectually very advanced, I would say it's emotionally bereft. It's almost non-existent. And I believe that's the problem. I think that if we really wanted to generate true artificial emotional intelligence, we would have to essentially start with, a program or an artificial intelligence code that starts out as like a little kid, and we allow that little kid to have experiences in a digital world. It could be just from exploring, controlled aspects of the internet, or watching, certain videos that maybe we expose different kids to at different ages. I mean, something like that. But until we're willing to put in the time to do it right, I don't believe we're really going to be able to generate any type of computer program that can understand and process the human experience. I mean, it's very simple. If you look at Google, which is arguably one of the most advanced AIs of our time, in a sense, it can make predictions about people and about places and everything. Uh, and you ask it to explain pain. What does pain feel like? It's just going to show you a bunch of stuff that it finds on the internet. Google itself can't tell you what it feels like to get a paper cut, and forget about it, and then you get soap in it or lemon juice or something like that. Google can't tell you that. It can only direct you to articles about that. Until we have computers that understand and have the capacity to truly experience things, I don't think we will have that. I think it'll be the realm of human beings for at least the foreseeable future. And I believe that to get it done right, I think we're looking at having to put together a team of individuals who work in different aspects of science and are willing to put aside preconceived notions and truly work together to generate something very special. I believe we can. It's a question of whether or not we will.
So let me ask you a new question, a quick question. So
Okay.
we and you introduced different time the idea of empathy and artificial empathy. If you go through Google, as I say, and go through artificial empathy, you will see a lot of articles that says that basically it means recognize emotion somehow and then create any kind of, let's say, response. From your point of view, let's say from the putting back your hat as a psychologist, from your point of view, how you see the artificial empathy? I mean, which are the blocks that can create a real artificial empathy based on your professional experience?
Well, okay, so again, there's kind of two aspects that you're talking about. First is uh, how do we create it, and second is how do we have technology that can detect and interpret it. So I'm gonna just start actually with the second part for a moment. If we look at our track record in the field of detecting anything through technology, um, let's use I don't know, the lie detector test for example. Okay, a polygraph. When this thing was created, it was like, oh my gosh, this machine can tell you when someone's lying. We now know that that's not the case. It detects anxiety, and more often than not, anxiety will increase when somebody is being dishonest. But the machine is not detecting dishonesty. The machine is detecting anxiety responses, the physiological responses to anxiety. Um, Now, when we look at a computer and we say that a computer can detect emotional state through facial expression recognition, I think we have to tread lightly. The computer might be able to interpret facial expressions, but we don't know. See, there's a disconnect between the facial expression and the emotional experience. You get what I'm saying? So, for example, if I were to look at your facial expression right now, if everyone were to look at this video and see your facial expression right now, some people may say you're happy. Some people may say that, you look puzzled. Some may say that you're just humoring me, as I'm giving you this answer. So it really is dependent on a host of factors and the way that people interpret facial expressions. I don't believe that we're at a point where computers can necessarily do that. Now, there are studies that are out there about what they call micro expressions, which are said to be involuntary, and they are supposedly consistent cross-culturally and things like that. I think that's different, and I believe that can be done. But at least in terms of wanting a machine to be able to detect facial expressions, if you train people appropriately. I mean, look, we watch movies all the time, and we love movies because there's some actors and actresses that they can make you feel something, by their medium, which is they're using their body to create art. They can fool even us as human beings into believing that they're happy, they're sad, they're excited, they're bored. So I don't think that computers necessarily will be able to pick up the nuance and the difference in between those things. Um, Now, the first part of your question was asking about what are the building blocks of empathy? I think that one of the most important building blocks of empathy is going to be experience. You see, we can empathize with someone else because we feel that we have experienced something similar, or maybe we've experienced something that has elicited a similar emotional response, although it may not be at the same degree or level as this person. We understand things like happiness and we understand things like sadness because we've had our own experiences. But again, I mean, in a computer, if you're generating a computer that does not have any ability to draw from experience, I don't believe empathy can exist. We have to think about what empathizing is. For you to be able to empathize with me, you must have had some sort of a similar experience. You know, when you're talking to a computer or talking about a computer or a technology and you want that computer to be able to empathize, if it doesn't have that experience to be able to categorize emotional experiences and know how to respond appropriately, it doesn't really make sense that it will be able to. It's just foreign. It would be like, if I said to you, describe what potato tastes like, but you've never had potato before, how can you describe that to me? You can't. It would be like taking a person who lacks the ability to see, they're blind, and asking them to tell you what the color blue looks like. It's just not feasible at this point in time. Now, I do believe there are some cool scientific research experiments we could do to try and teach computers and give computers those experiences. We certainly have these different sensory apparatus that could probably be plugged in through a USB or something and help a computer collect data points about every sensory experience that a human being is capable of. To my knowledge, I don't believe they've been done yet. But if you want to do it, I'm excited to jump on board. So count me in.
Thank you. So let me thank you for your time, and it's always a pleasure to talk with you and listen to your point of view. So it's very intriguing. And yeah, I hope we'll have the opportunity to make some kind of this test about experience, or as you say, teaching experiences to a computer. Probably it will be the next big wave, I hope so. So let me close with a very big thank you.
Thank you
And
for having me.
I hope we will have the opportunity to talk more again about these topics. But thank you again, Richard, for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Fabrizio.